Raggy dolls, raggy dolls, raggy dolls, raggy dolls, dolls like you and me. Raggy dolls, raggy dolls, raggy dolls, raggy dolls, made him perfectly. So if you got a bump on your nose or lumps on your toes, do not despair. Be like the raggy doll and say I just don't care. 'Cause raggy dolls, raggy dolls, raggy dolls, raggy dolls are happy just to be. Raggy dolls, dolls like you and me.
The Raggy Dolls were on a trip to London. They had just spent the night in the lost property office of one of the big London railway stations.
It's like having our very own hotel,
said Lucy.
It's just as comfortable as the reject bin in Mr. Grimes's factory.
It hasn't got a canteen, though,
observed Satsak.
What are we going to do about breakfast?
We'll have to eat out,
said Dotty.
This is London. There's bound to be lots of places.
Let's look around and see if there's a window or something, said Back to Front. We need to find our own private way in and out.
Good thinking,
said Dotty. The Raggy Dolls spread out and searched all around the shelves of lost property. The only windows seemed to be in the roof.
They're no good,
said Hi-Fi.
We could never reach them.
Over here, called Back to Front. He had found an air vent, not far from the box on the top shelf where they had slept. By the time the others joined him, he had unscrewed the grill in such a way that it could be hooked up again from the inside.
Here we are,
he said. No problem. Said Dotty.
I'm not sure. Perhaps we ought to see where it leads to first.
Everyone agreed. The Raggy Dolls climbed in one by one and crawled along on hands and knees. The air vent seemed to go on for ages, but soon they could hear the busy sounds of traffic and construction work.
Gosh,
said Princess.
I had no idea London was such a noisy place. We must be nearly there,
said Dotty.
Come on.
The air vent led them to an outside wall, right next to a big building site. Again, the opening was covered with a grill.
Oh dear, said Lucy. What are we going to do now?
Through the grill, the Raggy Dolls could see some scaffolding just below the opening.
We'll be all right once we get the grill loose,
said Back to Front, reaching for his screwdriver. But just then, a big pair of workman's boots appeared outside the grill.
Lift a bit more. Right, that's it, lower away.
After shouting his instructions, the man moved away.
We'd better be very, very careful,
said Dotty.
Whatever happens, we must stick together.
The Raggy Dolls nodded, and Back to Front got to work with his screwdriver. As soon as the grill was loose, they peeped out of the air vent. No one was in sight.
Come on,
hissed Dotty. One by one, the Raggy Dolls crawled out and made their way to the end of the scaffolding where they could see the top of a ladder. But just as they got there, another workman standing below them took it away.
Oh no,
said Lucy.
What are we going to do now? Let's try the other end,
said Dotty. The Raggy Dolls made their way back along the scaffolding until they found themselves standing on a flat metal sheet loaded with cement bags. I wonder what this is for, said Back to Front, pointing to a thick metal cable. No sooner had he spoken than the metal sheet, the cement bags, and the Raggy Dolls began to rise up, high into the air.
Oh no, moaned Sadsack. What's happening?
We were attached to a crane,
stammered Hi-Fi, pointing upwards.
Everybody hang on tight,
ordered Dotty. Up and up they went, until they were more than halfway up a very tall, unfinished office block. It seemed to nearly reach the sky.
No wonder they call these buildings skyscrapers,
said Back to Front.
Look out,
said Dotty.
Someone's coming.
The Raggy Dolls quickly hid behind a nearby bucket, while the man unloaded the cement bags.
Oh dear, said Lucy. I don't like being up so high. How are we going to get down?
Back to Front pointed to the metal plate. No problem. What goes up must come down. As soon as we can, we'll get back on and let the crane take us down. But it was too late. Another man wheeled a barrow onto the metal plate, and it was quickly lowered away.
Bother,
Said Dotty.
well, we can't stay here. Let's find somewhere that's out of the way. We need time to think.
Sadsack pointed to a long metal tube, big enough for the Raggy Dolls to hide in.
How about in there?
Good thinking.
Said Dotty. And as soon as the coast was clear, the Raggy Dolls scrambled in. But suddenly they heard chains being attached to the tube, and a man's voice shouted,
Right you are! Take it up!
Once again, the Raggy Dolls felt themselves being lifted up. Only this time, it was much worse. The long tube swung up and down like a seesaw. Inside, the Raggy Dolls started to slide down towards the open end.
Sacre bleu!
Exclaimed Claude.
Hold on, everybody!
He grabbed the rim of the tube while the others held on to each other's feet. Poor Sadsack was on the end. He looked down and could see the ground hundreds of feet below him, with nothing in between.
Oh no!
He moaned. But then the tube swung the other way, and it was Sadsack's turn to grab the rim and for the others to hold on to his feet. It was Claude dangling on the end this time. Up and up they went, turning and hanging on each time the tube tipped up and down. When at last they reached the very top of the building, two men wearing safety harnesses were ready to grab the tube. But they didn't bother. Instead, one spoke crossly into his walkie-talkie.
What's this? We want girders. You better take this all the way down again.
And before they knew it, the Raggy Dolls were having to hang on tight all over again as the crane lowered the tube all the way down to the ground. Without bothering to see if anyone was watching, the Raggy Dolls ran as fast as they could across the building site to a hole in the fence. They squeezed through and sat huffing and puffing in the doorway of a derelict house just across a narrow side street. It was a long time before any of them could speak.
I never want to do anything like that again,
exclaimed Princess. Everyone knew what she meant. Their first day in London had not gone well. They had been in deadly danger, lost their nice, comfortable place to stay, and had nothing to eat since yesterday.
Well, I'll be blowed,
said a voice.
It's the Raggy Dolls.
It was Ragamuffin, the travelling doll. He stood on the steps of the basement to the derelict house. The Raggy Dolls were delighted to see their old friend once again.
Ragamuffin,
said Dotty.
what are you doing here?
I live here, he explained. It's only temporary, of course, but it's comfortable. What about you? You look as though you could do with some breakfast. Would you care to join me? Down in the basement, Ragamuffin cooked sausages and bacon on his camping stove, while the Raggy Dolls told him all about their adventures and why they had come to London. Well, if you want to see the sights, I'll be only too happy to show you around. But first, let's eat.
Oh yes.
Said Sadsack, staring hungrily at the sausages and bacon.
Never mind the sights. This is the best thing I've seen since I came to London.
Everyone laughed and felt really glad to be safe and all together again.
Raggy dolls, dolls like you and me. Raggy dolls, made imperfectly. So if you're not at ease with your knobbly knees and your fingers are all thumbs, then stand on your two left feet and join our Raggy Doll chums. 'Cause Raggy dolls are happy just to be Raggy Dolls.